Welcome to our next edition of the Foundation Speaker Series. My name is Karen Musanti, and today I'm being joined by a friend and colleague, Jake Rouch. Jake is the Vice President of Economic Development at the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership. He is also a member of our statewide board of directors, was a past speaker at our summer program, Pennsylvania for Enterprise Week, and has a true passion for not only his job, but his community. Jake, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I know you have a very long background, and we're going to get into your work experience. But I thought maybe we would start at the beginning, and if you can remember back to your high school days. Just as a sneak peek, he majored in political science, so I want to kind of get to how you got to that decision. So go back to high school days and maybe talk a little bit about your high school, where you went to high school, and maybe some interests that you had that kind of piqued your interest into what you may do for a living.
Well, if we go back to high school, I wouldn't say that there was something specifically in high school that did, but I had a transformational event when I was between my junior and senior year. And I made this wild decision to go work at a summer camp in New Hampshire for the summer. I had brothers that had worked at a camp, and I decided at that point, for whatever reason, something inside me said, I need to go do this. So they had all worked in Michigan. I went up to New Hampshire, and it was truly like, a total immersion, jump off the train right in the middle of nowhere. I went to a place and I thought, this is going to be the greatest summer of my life. And then my parents took off and I knew no one. And that anxious feeling. And so, but that summer was truly the transformational point of my life up to that point, and really since then, because it exposed me to new people, new cultures, new ways of living, and it on every level. And I had incredible experiences. And so then I went to Gannett University and I majored in political science. And that was, I think I had this internal innate desire, not necessarily to debate, but between right and wrong. And so politics kind of has a right and a wrong side to it. But I found out very early, I got into school with some very similar-minded people that both had fun but loved to debate things and discuss things and analyze things. And so it was during my years at Gannon, as a political science student, you kind of go, well, I'm going to get my master's in public administration, become a bureaucrat, working for a federal agency or state agency, go to law school. That was another option. And I took a course in urban planning. And that was the first time, because I also loved economics. And that was the first time that I kind of saw something meld together. I was like, well, urban planning involves local government, and it involves politics, it involves, and specifically economic development. It was constructive, right? It was all about how do you make a community great? And I really liked that. That really spoke to me, that I didn't want to be part of the destructive battles that can go on in politics. I wanted to be part of the solution. So urban planning became my thing. And I ended up going to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and I got my master's in urban planning, and I specialized in economic development. And from that, I came out in the middle of a recession, similar to what we're experiencing now, actually nowhere near what we're experiencing now, but I came out in a recession, and a lot of my colleagues, number one, they weren't finishing their degrees in 2 years, and I was like, I need to go to work. So I finished my degree, and a lot of my colleagues, I kind of said, I'm not going to get a job in my field, so I'll move to where I want to live. And I was looking at that greater Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC megatropolis where there are people. And I ended up, I did an internship in between my first and second years of grad school, and the day I was taking my thesis to Kim Copy, which you'll remember, or Kinko's, it was Kinko's.
Right.
And to get copied, I got a call from my boss, and he said, hey, when you come back to town, I'd like to talk to you about some opportunities. And so I came back, and within a week of being back home, I had a job back here in Erie. So, from there, I worked for a guy who was a genius, but he was also kind of a Tasmanian devil. I mean, he was brilliant in economic development. He knew law better than the attorneys. He knew real estate better than the real estate folks. He knew finance as good or better than the bankers. He knew environmental law. And so he was great at throwing me into the fire and giving me projects that probably were over my head, and I loved it. I loved the work, but I also wanted to be my own boss, or be the boss rather, someday, of an organization. And so, it's again networking, connections. I had met some people early on in my career through my boss, and one guy was leaving his position in a small town in Clearfield County, Du Bois, Pennsylvania. And I said, hey, I think you ought to consider that job. So I ended up interviewing. I got a job down there running their Chamber of Commerce, their Economic Development Corporation. I did that for a year and a half. I loved it. And then, and they were great people. And I kind of said, I'm going to give them X number of years of my life. But then I got a knock on the door again from actually my old boss, and then from another person who I admired a great deal in Erie, Mike Batchelor from the Erie Community Foundation. And they said, this position's opened up with the Erie Conference on Community Development. So I was hesitant, but at the end of the day, I wanted to move back home and kind of make my dad and my mom proud and be back in my hometown, not as an idea that it was going to be my end point by any means. And I came back, interviewed for that job, and that was one lesson learned. It's like, you can interview for jobs. You don't have to take them, but you can go try. And I interviewed, was offered that job, and came back and worked there for about 5-6 years, and then led, or was a part of the group that led taking that group and merging it with our Erie Area Chamber of Commerce, and created this group, the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership. And I've been here working for the Chamber in a number of positions since 2001. And so that's kind of my career path, from, high school into college, first job, networking, meeting people. I think probably the greatest thing that I did throughout that was that first boss made a hell of an impression on me. I got to tell you, there were things that I will never do that he did as a boss, but his thirst for knowledge and his ability to analyze and think about things showed me kind of the pathway that would lead me to continue to do this work. And so it's a never-ending learning process, and I love my job. I love coming to work every day.
And it's really, you've really talked a lot about how you have to be flexible and willing to move around to follow your passion and maybe experience things, but then put a deadline on that and say, look, I'm going to give this a chance, like you said, for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then and be willing at that time to say, you know what, this isn't what's going to make me happy, or there's something better, and I'm going to go try that.
Yeah. And, along the way, you have to be really honest with yourself. And you have to kind of know what's making you happy. I mean, if you're having trouble getting up and out of bed to go to work, then you have a problem. And it doesn't mean you quit, but it does mean that you're honest with yourself and try to figure out what that was or what that is. For me, I really never had that problem. I was presented, very fortunately, with few opportunities that for me were great experiences. And so I've always enjoyed pursuing those. But yeah, you have to be honest and real. And I will say this, in the last 20 years, 15 years since I've been back in Erie, I absolutely have looked into other positions, and I've interviewed for other positions. And at the end of the day, the decision to leave just wasn't right. The job just wasn't right, nor I didn't feel that. But I think you always have to be open. In interviewing, I'm a big fan of, you have to be transparent with people and honest. So when we hire people here, one of the things we always tell them is, look, if something comes along in this job, because you will be exposed, and somebody is interested in talking to you about a position, that is totally understandable, and we're cool with that. But tell us first. Just tell us that you're interviewing for another position. We don't consider it a threat, but what we don't want you to do, the worst thing is to find out that an employee has left you and you never had a chance to talk with them. So I don't, and I also don't want somebody to feel trapped here. I don't want them to feel like I can't talk to them about it. And if the job's not fitting for someone here, we tell them, we're like, just let us know and start looking. But in the meantime, keep coming to work and giving us 100%. But then, we'll help you find something that fits your needs. but we can't lose you right now. We need you to be part of the team. We'll help open doors. If you're honest with us, we'll be honest with you, and we'll do what we can to help you. So, as an employee, that's really hard. It can be very vulnerable, and you have to find your own voice to communicate that. But I'm a big fan of open and honest communication from employees to me and me to the employees. Really helps build a solid team and helps you feel better. Sometimes just talking about it out loud can decompress the stress, and the job becomes more fun because your boss knows where you're coming from. Your coworkers know where you're coming from. So
Right. Yeah, and I would think that when you're interviewing people for work at the chamber, no matter what the job is, there are probably certain characteristics that you're looking for in those people. Can you just you talked about honesty being one of them. You want them to be honest with you. Are there a few other things maybe that you think about or that you look at when you're interviewing people through the chamber?
yeah, I have some like go-to interview questions. I might, for instance, first and foremost, I'll ask, silly questions. I ask people if they've ever played a team sport. I think playing a team sport is important because when you work, you're going to be on a team. And so have you ever been coached? That would be another one. Because if you haven't been coached, you have to understand coaches can be hard. And so a lot of what you do as a boss is you're coaching, you're not reprimanding. So that gives me a little insight to the person about how amenable they'll be to working on a team and being coached. I will ask people, what is the biggest mistake you ever made in your life? It's kind of crazy questions, and that tests a little bit of vulnerability, and it also tests honesty. But at the end of the day, I want authentic answers, right? The worst thing you can do a job interview is try to tell me what you think I want to hear, because frankly, I don't have a preconceived idea, right? I'm hiring someone who fits our culture. Obviously, they need to have intelligence, but I should know that from a resume, right? So what I'm really looking for is what I see on the resume going to come across as far as who you are in person. I want to see you ask questions of me and about the position, because to do our job well, you have to have a thirst for knowledge. You have to be able to really get in and understand a problem to begin to cultivate a solution. And I think that it really helps because we're a business organization. We help businesses. You have to have an innate understanding of business. So for me, so if your expertise is marketing, that's great. I know you can do all the marketing stuff, but do you have an understanding of businesses? Because they're all different. And so the marketing strategies have to be modified, for instance, to help that particular business. So I look for someone who has a thirst of knowledge and continuous learning, someone who can be open and honest, that can clearly communicate, and who isn't afraid to ask a question because they don't understand instead of guessing. And then the last would be I'm looking for someone who's authentic and who's not trying to tell me what they think I want to hear. That's not helpful for me.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the important role that a chamber plays, in society, in a town, in an area. You specifically, what your role is. To simplify it in a way, you're kind of selling Erie. You're selling Erie to businesses to try to attract businesses to Erie. So let's talk a little bit about what your role is with the chamber and what the important role of a chamber is.
Sure. So a chamber of commerce is it's a membership organization, but you might call it a business federation. So chambers have been around for hundreds of years. They're everywhere in the world. You can go to Osaka, Japan, and there's going to be a chamber of commerce. You can go to Du Bois, Pennsylvania, there's a chamber of commerce. So it's a group of businesses that kind of collectively pay a membership fee and use the resources there to help each other, create opportunities for them to connect with one another, distribute information about the community, serve as a gateway for anyone who's coming to, in many cases, visit the community, but also to make an investment in the community. So it's the business community saying, we can't leave it to chance. We have to have a place for all of us to be able to go for assistance, help, and outside businesses to come and go for assistance and help. So that's generally what a chamber of commerce does. My particular role is I'm the vice president of economic development. And so we have a team, and so I would break it down. So we have a team of outreach specialists, and those folks, there's 3 of them. They are charged with going out and meeting with businesses proactively, meaning not waiting until there's a problem, but calling them and saying, tell me what's keeping you up at night. And we train them to understand all the resources in the region available to help those businesses get connected to the right resource to solve their problem. So if we go into a business and they say, this is what's keeping me up at night. Now we clearly go in and thank them for being in business and learn about their business, tour their business. Again, for us, those people have to love businesses. That's one of the funnest jobs you'll ever have, is just going out and talking to people. It's like talking to them about their children. And so, and you know that, I mean, your dad had a great business, and it was, I'm sure, besides you, the pride and joy for him. Mm-hmm. So you talk to them and you say, what's keeping you up at night? Then if you've done it right, they tell you honestly what their challenges are. And then our job is to make connections for them to get to people who can address that challenge that's keeping them up at night. And then we coordinate all of the other agencies that provide services that we don't. So there's businesses that provide low interest loans or job training, or that develop land and sell land. We deal with, and we coordinate all those people together and make sure that they're coordinated, that the left and right hand aren't duplicating each other, that we're working in collaboration. And so that's another major role for me. And so it involves me having to maintain strong relationships and communication with about 25 different organizations. The last piece of it is the one that a lot of people think is the biggest piece, and that is business attraction. So when a company is looking to make an investment in Erie, they have lots of information they need, and they need to connect with someone who can give them the lay of the land in Erie and begin their consideration of Erie. And that's really what I probably, instead of managing it, I'm really doing that firsthand. And we're very, just similar to the way in which we hire people, and I talked about interviewing. When businesses come here, we do the same thing with them. Tell us what your needs are. How can, and then once we hear, we're very honest with them about whether or not we feel we're a fit or we're not. And what we have found is our transparent approach, our completely honest, vulnerable, straightforward approach, it consistently resonates with businesses because we're not selling them something. We'll tell them we're not a fit for you. And almost sometimes when you tell them that we're not a fit for them, they almost want to make it a fit. And we're like, look, we're just telling you it's not going to work here, but we'll help you get connected to someone else. And so the job changes every day. Some days you're dealing with very positive news, and some days you're dealing with very negative news when businesses close. And so there's so many aspects. I don't want to go into them, but I have to have a working knowledge of finance, of real estate, of legal matters, of local government, planning issues, regulatory issues, personalities, politics, basically. And then you get into the businesses, and I can know enough to be dangerous about manufacturing or, insurance or, banking, or marketing or technology. And, just because I've been doing this for about 30 years. And if you have that interest, you keep asking people, how do you make money? What do you do? What's the solution that you provide? So that's a very long-winded answer to your simple question.
That's a great answer. So you touched on it right at the end, and I want to ask a question about it. And that's, you're a public person. We see you on the news. We see you out there meeting and greeting and talking about issues that are relatable. But you have good days and you have bad days. And sometimes it's good news and sometimes it's bad news. How do you personally deal with that? How do you, I can't imagine you can go home and just turn that off, but what would be your suggestion to young people? Because obviously we're all dealing with a very different situation right now. They're home from school, or they didn't get to finish school or graduate or whatever. What kind of advice would you give to young people who aren't used to dealing with maybe rejection or negative things that are happening?
That's a good question. I spend an inordinate amount of time outside the office thinking about Erie and the Erie economy. And I mean, when I'm cutting grass, I'm thinking about that. And it's not like I'm distracted from the family. It's just kind of what I do. But I've found that a lot of times when the scenario is not good, I try to play it out in my head to what the possible outcomes are. And I usually, gravitate to, if this happens and this happens and this happens, and I kind of start with the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario here? And then from that, you can you've lived that, now you shake that off, and then you start to be able to say what the possible areas are along that pathway that you could change that would alter the outcome. The other is I accept the fact that, you know what, you're not going to win them all. And the reality of an economy is, and this is a hard one because people everywhere, they don't really want to understand this, but human beings are born and die every day. Businesses are born and die every day. And some businesses die because they were bad businesses. They weren't well managed. They didn't have a good product. They didn't change. Others do die because of unfortunate circumstances. And then there's others that just transition. So, there's a book called The Living Company that changed my entire perspective on business. And it basically said, we have companies that are 400 years old in the world, and we have companies, but the average age of a company in the United States is like 20 years old, or it's like 17, right? So how is it that the human species keeps getting older and the age of people keeps growing, but companies don't? And it's because companies they don't evolve in the same, like if they practice good evolutionary practices and learn from the past, pay attention to the environment around them, they can survive. So how do I deal with it? I confront it. I don't turn my back to it. I don't try to, bury it, behind a bottle, or, just forget about it and think it's going to magically. You have to face up to it. And you'd be shocked. You probably wouldn't be shocked. But business owners and people in the economy, they appreciate candor and they appreciate straightforwardness. So if you say to someone, I'm sorry, there's just nothing we can do for you right now, because of this and this. If you've proven that you've listened to them and you understand what their challenge is and you're able to explain why you can't help them, and they know that you understand their situation, they're not going to get mad. They're frustrated. And so, frankly, we live the bad ones 5 times more than we live the good ones. And that's borne out in headlines, right?
Right.
If business opens, you get 1 headline. But if it's closing, you get the announcement that it's closing, 2 days before it's closing, the day of it's closing, 30 days after it closed. And so I live those deaths multiple times, and you just can't be focused on that. It's a living thing. Our economy is a living thing. Leaves grow every day and they die every day. Now, clearly, I want more leaves growing, fewer dying, and that's the inherent challenge. So we try to create an environment here so that more things can grow and grow faster.
Right. All right. Enough talk of the bad then. Let's talk about what's your favorite part of your job?
Right now I really enjoy the team. I've worked with great people, but so I love their intellectual curiosity. But by far, it is learning something new about business, a new business. Today we had a meeting with a company that basically is talking about buildings as their own power system, their own battery. Like each building is its own building. So if power goes down, doesn't matter, the building will always be able to supply it, and using digital technology for it. And that's one where it was way beyond my pay grade, but I was able to keep asking questions and get an understanding and then see something. So for me, getting into a business, meeting a business owner, asking them about their business and learning it, hands down the favorite thing.
Yeah. Let's go back to where we started, I guess. You talked a little bit about how the summer program that you went to change your path, change your life. And we like to think that at PFEW, that's a little bit about what happens with our students as well. They take a chance, they come to the summer program and perhaps they experience something that they had no idea, or they decide finance maybe is something that interests them, or owning a business, or maybe they thought they wanted to be a finance person and they realized, no, maybe not so much, which is okay. As long as we've helped them. So maybe go back to that and the importance of taking a chance, or maybe doing an internship at a younger age to help them find out what their path may be.
For a lot of the students that have gone to PFEW or are going, you may be going with some friends, or you may be going solo. And the bottom line is that you're stepping into uncertainty. You don't know exactly what you're getting into, and you don't know how great it's going to go. And I know that I've had a list of rules for my kids, and when they're really young, and one of them was make your stomach tingle with uncertainty as often as possible, right? So that's how you get progress. You don't get progress by feeling comfortable. You really grow by doing things that make you uncomfortable. That's lifting weights, right? If you lift more weights, you tear more muscles, it's uncomfortable. But that's how you get stronger. And the same goes for running or whatever the exercise is. But I think that when kids go to a PFEW, they should never be afraid of failing, or trying something that's making them, because it usually is like seconds in your life. If you think about the worst for a guy asking a girl, hey, face to face, not via text, even text, right? Oh, God, hey, I was wondering if you'd like to go out to a movie, right? Like, that's seconds in your life. It creates huge anxiety. And once you do it, you feel incredibly scared, relieved, right? But you did it. Right. And the next time it will be easier to do. And so whether it's giving a speech in front of a group, yeah, you might screw up, but really, usually it's just once you get through the first 5 seconds of anything, then you're into it. And then, yeah, it could be a miserable failure or not. But, at the end of the day, that's what PFEW is. It's a great exposure. It shouldn't be looked at as a pass-fail. It should be looked at as, did you try as many different things? Did you push to that point of discomfort and then push through it, regardless of what the outcome is? It's pushing through it. It's actually trying that's really going to make a big difference. And that goes with meeting new people. It's a very, challenging, awkward thing, but it's super exciting. And the payoffs for a lot of people are, and you have, I'm sure, hundreds of stories of this, are lifelong friends that have been born out of this experience beyond the business knowledge. So what an incredible legacy that is. And that's what's in front of all of these kids when they go to this program. And that's the way you should look at it is, yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable sometimes. Deal with it.
Awesome. Jake, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all you've done for our foundation, for our students, and obviously for Erie County. We really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
If anybody wishes to talk with Jake individually or to connect with him through our offices, please feel free to do so. His contact information will be provided following this interview. He would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us.